Okay, greetings from Adelaide. I'm here with a brand new HoonTV project. Now, unlike the other cars and bikes I've done in the past, this bike belongs to somebody else. Now, this is a 1998 Yamaha R1, so that means that this is 20 years old, and this year is the 20th anniversary of the R1 because this is the first ever one that came out. It's been done up in the past by the previous owner. It's pretty good, but it's been done on the cheap. But all credit to the guy, he's made it look quite nice, but there's still a lot of stuff on it. It's not quite right. There's broken fairings and bits and pieces and nuts and bolts that aren't right. But it does ride okay, I'm pretty impressed. So the thing is, this bike's going to get stripped right down to a bare frame and everything's going to be made new again. Now, when I say new, a few little tricks here that we're going to do to make it even newer than you'd think, but we'll let you in on that soon. So without further ado, I'm going to jump back on the bike, head back to the workshop and start pulling this apart. When I said new, I was lucky enough to have a brand new R1 donated as part of the project as a parts donor bike. Trust me when I say it was a bit nerve-wracking at first, but once Tony from Race Bike Service and I got stuck into it, I realised that it's just parts, and these bikes get turned into race bikes all the time. The beauty of having a new bike was the fact that all the parts going from bike to bike wouldn't need to be refurbished, and the finished product will look like new. After we finished pulling down the new R1, I then turned to the 98, and it was time to tear that down too. Couple of hours left, day two. Got the 98 R1 stripped down as well now. Pretty much a bare frame, just a couple of brackets and bearing cups and stuff like that. Plan of attack now is to just assess stuff and look at differences in bearing sizes. I was able to do a few assessments based on part numbers and that before, but without being able to pull stuff apart completely, just on part numbers and measurements, and it was pretty close. But obviously now that I can actually look at stuff and measure it properly with verniers and rulers and stuff like that, then we can really work out what needs to be done as far as fitting the forks. Had a quick look at the swing arm. Not a lot of work for the main swing arm bolt to go in. It's just the later model one runs a slightly thicker swing arm bolt. So yeah, a bit of machining there, but nothing major in the way of engineering, which is fantastic. So hoping that with all the new swing arm linkages and everything like that, a couple of small adjustments here, but nothing massive. It's just really the engine itself and the engine mounts, and as we saw when we did like an assessment of it all before, it's not a quick and easy job, but it's also not reinventing the wheel and changing the whole frame. It's just a few mounting points. So machining some new engine mounts, welding them on properly, doing it all as per what the engineer is happy with, it should come up a treat. Obviously we've got two completely exploded R1s here. Engine's like the last part of the fab process, but I'm just looking at the two triple clamps and the heights of the head stems. So I can't just throw that straight into the frame, and then there's other bits that could be tricky. But one thing I have just looked at, and with a few measurements, is that it appears that the old triple clamp and the new one might be almost identical in dimensions. The thing that amazes me, which makes the engineering side of this so much easier, having spoken to the engineer before even pulling anything apart or getting the bikes, was the dimensions and specs of the two bikes are so similar. Like, it's a couple of mil here, 2 kilos I think in overall weight. Even the fork length here is 5 mil different, and that's just an adjustment change anyway. So it's like when they built the bike originally in 1998, they got it right, and then over the years they've just progressively tweaked it rather than redesigning the whole bike, because the first bike was a great bike. It's just the new one's newer technology and just, you know, later model. So yeah, I'm blown away. It's really cool. Too good to be true. It's awesome. So we've got the brand new fuel filler cap, goes straight into the old tank. Okay, so one of the things with the bike is the conversion of running the old headlights and everything with the new loom. Shouldn't be a big drama. The new loom does have the light control unit, which is like a computer that runs the headlights. May be able to use that. What I'm going to do though is, because the front fairing stay bracket is broken, so I'm going to pull this all apart and just assess how good a condition the headlight's in. Also look at the difference in the mounting for the old Speedo versus the new one, because obviously we want to use the new Speedo. And then just look at how it's all going to work, because we're just waiting on a few other bits with the frame and the suspension. So this is just keeping me busy for now. So yeah, there we go. They're going to have these ADR compliant tags on them. We can't just go using aftermarket ones, so those E13s. Right, so it's day 4. We're in a slightly different location today. We're up the road at Solid Engineering and Mechanical. We've got Johnny, who's the machinist. He's going to be helping with just making adjustments to the bushes and stuff like that. There's so many little changes that need to be made to, like, the shock mounts and swing arm and stuff like that. It's quite amazing. There's no major amounts of engineering that have to go into putting the forks and the swing arm in. When it comes to putting the engine in, that's a little bit different, but that's we've already sort of worked out what we want to do there. But we want to pretty much get the bike rolling first, and that way make sure the swing arm's all nice and central, and then line up the engine and the sprocket and all that, and whether or not we have to machine the bush behind the sprocket to move it around. But today's just all about measuring and machining, so we'll get stuck into it and get it happening. So for the bottom suspension pickup, that's the original one out of the new R1, and that's 17mm OD. So with the new bearing that I've got replaced, it's an 18mm OD, and it's a shorter space in the frame. So I haven't modified the frame at all. I just basically made this one slightly larger OD, shorter to suit the frame, and that's out of 4140 high tensile steel. So basically the same material, everything. So not changing anything, just making it fit. I'm just back here in the workshop now, just looking at the tail light here, because we have been able to get a brand new genuine headlight, genuine mirrors, genuine indicators, because being a full road registered engineered bike, we have to use all the ADR approved lights. We can't use aftermarket ones. Just trying to track down a new tail light. This one's in pretty good condition, but it's a bit of sort of road wear here from stones hitting it, some scratches and that, and obviously I want the bike to be like brand new again. So fingers crossed we can find one, otherwise we'll have to try polishing this and make it like new again. But yeah, that's one of the aesthetic things at the end. But because the project's not going to take a massive amount of time, I'm just sort of trying to organise stuff like this now, so that when we do need it, it's ready to go. Even like yesterday, I was on the phone to the bloke about the fairings. Might take a little bit of time to get them happening, but hopefully ordering them now they'll pretty much arrive at the right time. So got a day off from the build because got something else on the go, but back on Thursday, because it's Tuesday today, back on Thursday, and we're back in solid to hopefully finish up machining, get the swing arm fitting in the bike, and then pretty much by the end of Thursday we'll have the frame rolling again with all the suspension in it, and we'll start looking at mounting the engine into the frame. So pretty big week, but yeah, it's been a lot of progress, and I'm pretty amazed by how this is coming together. It's Friday morning, we're at Solid. This is a bracket, it's unfinished, it's obviously got to be smoothed out and rounded, but it's just the basic blank at the moment. And what this is for the steering dampener, because on the late model frame, it's got a tab that hangs out here for the steering dampener to come off. So what we've done is we've replicated the dimensions there and got the distance right, and Johnny's designed this one up and just chuck it on, mounts off here. And then like that. This is the steering head stem that came out of the current model one. Now it's obviously too long for the early model bike because it would sit that far out, because the frame's quite a bit taller here in the late model one. Because the top's quite similar, we're going to actually replicate the top of that so the old one looks the same as the new one, or as close as we can get it. It's not a necessity, but you know, it'll be cool nonetheless. As you can tell, I've grown a bit of hair, so it's been a few days since I've been in the workshop. The project is progressing, and as you can tell, we've got the new swing arm in the old frame. It all works nicely. We've taken the spring off the shocks just so that we can check the actuation, make sure everything clears. This is a 3D print. The 3D printer had a bit of a hiccup, so it's not perfect, but we've got that sitting in there now. We're actually machining the proper billet one today. A few other bits and pieces on the go. We've got this, which is the mirror of the base out of the new fuel tank, which will be drilling the holes in so that the fuel pump, which I'll get and show you. So this is the fuel pump out of the new tank. Will sit in the old tank and be welded all in, so it works exactly the same way. And that's steel. This is just the start of. We made a base plate to suit the new Speedo. Got that all wrapped up so it doesn't scratch the damage, but a base plate for the new Speedo, which we're working out exactly the correct placement so that it all works. But so we'll have the old fairing stay. This is a brand new one from Yamaha, but the old fairing stay with the new Speedo mounted in it. This is the billet bracket we made the other day, which is for the steering dampener. So basically that mounts off this nice solid part of the frame, allows the steering dampener to be mounted in the exact same position it came off the new frame. And on the new frame, it's part of the frame, so we've had to make this so that it mirrors that. But what we've done is we've actually cut this fairing stay and made that all part of that. Cam's welded that all on there nicely, so it's all nice and strong. We've added an extra bolt just for a bit of extra strength. Probably didn't need it, but that's there too, because there's a nice meaty part of the frame there. The other main thing we're doing is the machining of the suspension link. Designed that all up the other day, did the 3D print, and that's all looking pretty good. But we're just starting to set this up, which will be basically a fab bench, but also a jig bench, so that we can actually jig up the frame, get it all in place, and then once it all gets welded, it'll be held together nicely. So plenty to do, lots on the go. looking at, I'm trying not to force it too much, like I'm just, because it's kind of sitting where it needs to. It's probably not straight, but it's obviously like, it's got nothing to sort of rest on, but it's actually got room around there, around here. Yeah, so the front of the motor fits in the frame, and where the side stand mounts is too far forward on the late model one, it mounts back here, and we knew that was going to be a problem, so we're just going to have to make a brand new side stand mount that'll go up on here like a billet one. Yeah.
With the engine installation well underway, I headed to Coast Power Sports to see the boss, Mark Flynn, to borrow a sample seat from his 1998 R1. From there I went to see motorcycle seat trimmer Tony Smith from Southland Trim to find a material that would come as close as possible to the original red. Yes, the bike is going back to the original red and white colour scheme. As Mark's seat wasn't brand new and is 20 years old, the colour wasn't easy to match. Yet, once we removed the strap and found a few clean spots, we grabbed the sample book and found the ideal replacement. I left Tony to order the material, and when I returned to the workshop, went on a hunt for a new pillion seat as the bike didn't come with one. Isle of Man TT racer Davo Johnson dropped by for a look at the progress, and I headed back to Race Bike Services to unbox some of the new parts that had arrived.
Awesome. Oh, it looks like we're taking a trip to Locksmith. That's the old one, which is all broken and stuff, and that's a brand new one. So, but what I want to do though is the rear seat key out of the new one. So what I'm going to do is take this to the locksmith, because the keys are very similar in design. I'm hoping that the locksmith's going to say yes, because I want to change this so that this key opens the old seat, so that we're just running one key, because there'll be one key, not having to run two, which is annoying. So, but yeah, good locksmith should know what he's doing. So yeah, worth a shot.
Once the seat arrived, I returned to Southland Trim and Tony set to work recreating a perfect pair of red seats to match the original red and white colour scheme.
Alright, now we're at a pretty important part of the project. We've built a frame jig, so what we did yesterday was we've got the motor jigged on this base plate, which is actually a base plate out of a CNC machine, so we know it's pretty true. So we had the motor here with the current model frame bolted over it, so we worked out where the headstock needed to go. And this is the start of the jig that we'll use for when we weld it. It'll have bars and everything holding it all in place so nothing moves when the aluminium's welded. But what we've had to do, and we discussed with the engineer before doing all this, was removing this part of the frame, which is where the engine mount is, and then building a new part and welding that back in. So because of the 98 engine bolts back here, obviously it was never going to work because the mount is up here on the late model one. So we're going to replace this part here and basically make a new one, and also up under the back here, the 4 mounting tabs that mount the back of the engine don't line up, so we're going to have to replace them too. So it's not a biggie. The main thing was is that we've got the engine sitting in there nicely now. The airbox, the bottom half of the airbox fits in beautifully. There's room around both sides, which I'm really happy about. And the main issue is even though the tank design from the early to the late one is quite similar with this big open section under here, the front of it, and maybe it's because of the way it's sitting, this can still move a little bit, is fouling just with the tank at the front there. It's looking like we're going to have to cut the bottom side of the tank out and pull that out, modify it, and then weld it all back in. And yeah, pretty excited because we've now got the current model engine sitting in the early frame, and it's the start of what will hopefully be the biggest part of the project. And from there on in, it's just basically getting all the rest of the components to fit and then pulling it apart, making it look pretty and putting it back together.
One of the parts we didn't film was the cutting out of the underside of the fuel tank. After a long day of deliberating, I made the executive decision to remove the front section of the tank in order to create more room for the airbox. To strengthen the tank edge, a steel rod was shaped and welded into place. Because of the shape of the tank, the overall capacity wouldn't be reduced much, but the additional room made life much easier. As you can see by the marked sections, areas that were dented previously and fixed with filler could now be fixed properly.
Today I'm working on the fuel tank. Now I've cut this out. This is where the original sender and fuel pickup were for the carbies. Now I've cut this out from here because we've machined this up, which is basically replicates what's on the factory tank on the new R1. So what it is the EFI fuel pump sits in there, so the O-ring on the pump seats on that, and it's basically got this nice little plate that holds it all in place. Now what I've done is cut a hole in the bottom of the tank for that to sit into, and then all we've got to do now is work out the exact angle that it needs to sit on so that we can weld it all in place, and it'll get welded all the way around. But what I'm doing now is on the later model one, it sits about there, but because the two overflow drains here on this side, that works. But what I'm going to have to do is bring it around here. So what I'm just check now is by taping this in place, sitting it on the bike, and then making sure that where the fuel line goes, it's all going to work. Otherwise we'll have to modify the fuel line, which isn't a biggie, but it's something that if we can avoid doing it, then it's a bonus. So yeah, let's get this happening.
And on goes the tape. The reason for doing this is it allows for quick and easy orientation adjustments to be made. In the case of the setup on this R1, no changes were needed and everything fitted into place nicely. After this, Cam from Solid Engineering set to work welding it in.
Alright, boxer cam. I have one tank sitting where it should. Well, the rubber bump stops aren't at the back, so it's sitting a bit over to one side, but I'll be fine when the bump stops are in and there's a new front mount made. But basically, we have tank over airbox, which is the desired result. Also, in this crazy wide view, ta-da! Yesterday I finished up modifying the new front bracket to mount the new speedo in the old fairing. It's quite neat. It's just a bit of masking tape around there to protect the speedo. But yeah, very happy with that.
My next job was then to construct the front wall of the tank and tack it in ready to be welded by Cam, and then tank sealed. With the tank done, it was back to finalising the rear suspension linkage and alignment. Nuts were used as temporary spacers before new CNC offset dog bones were made. Because we needed to see the full travel of the swing arm, adjustments needed to be made to the table. The next step was to start working on engine mounting. Whilst Johnny made new expanding spacers that would bolt to links on the back of the engine, I set to work making crush tubes and a jig that would allow for full replacement of the old pillion pegs with the ones from the new R1.
Massive update. It's been probably a week since we've done any filming, but I have been taking plenty of photos, so nothing's been missed. But basically at the point where we're about to weld up the frame with the new mounts on it. So as you can see, we've got the new billet engine mounts on there, where the old cast ones were. So they're all perfectly in line to suit the new R1 engine. All the air boxes in now. Made a little aluminium scoop on the front of the airbox for the air to come in over the top of the radiator. In the back here, modified the factory under tray, and then made an aluminium base plate underneath it. So basically we've got the ABS unit, the battery, the little G-force unit or whatever it's called. I'll put the technical term for that under there. The X-up valve actuator there. The original brace on the frame here was just bent because they're made out of really flimsy aluminium, so we've replaced that with a new one. And just for giggles, we've added the toolkit for the new R1 in, which is basically 2 Allen keys. As you can see with these, linished back the original weld, so not going into the frame itself, and then this will get welded together here. So what we'll do is we'll tack it all in place so it doesn't move, but then jig it, and then remove everything, take the engine out, jig the frame with the engine out so that nothing can move, like jig the thing so it's rock solid, and then weld it all back together. Another thing we did earlier in the build was, because we're using the old head stem instead of the new one, because obviously the height difference. One thing I wanted to do was to replicate that. We'll make it look like the new one. The dimensions are all almost identical, it's just the length. But one thing I was concerned about was that this one here, even though nobody'd ever see it, has had a pretty hard life. Like there's little gouges out of it and all sorts of stuff where they've obviously used the incorrect tool to put a bearing on. Now I'm a bit of an OCD type mechanic, I like things done properly. So what I did was I got another one from a wrecker in America, and then yesterday we put it in the mill and did that to it. So this will get sent off and anodized in hopefully the same colour, a pretty close copy of the new one. So that was just a little cool thing I wanted to do just to add to the whole build. So yeah, hopefully that'll be all done this week. But we're at the point now where once the engine's mounted in the bike, you can basically hang it under its own weight, take this stand off that's holding the engine up, and then I can hang the headers on it, make sure the catalytic converter's all going to fit, which in theory, by looking at it now, there was a bit of concern at first it wouldn't, but it looks like it'll come pretty close. From there, it's sort of happy days. We'll make sure we do a dummy assembly of the whole bike, make sure everything fits, and pull it all apart, send everything off to get painted, anodized, plated, and then put it all back together and she's done. So looking forward to that.
Here we go. Sounds nothing like a 98 R1.
Right, so it's like 5:30, coming towards pack up time. The bike now runs. We've done a dummy assemble on the bike, pretty much put as much stuff in as possible just to make sure that before we go ahead and paint everything, that everything works. And no ECU codes, everything's good. What I wanted to do to keep the engineer happy was to make sure we had the catalytic converter, the X-up valve, all the stuff that's factory on the bike still there, so it still meets emissions as per a normal new R1. Still noise levels all the same. And funnily enough, now what I'm doing is I've got the old fairings, which I kind of have to refit to the bike again because all the lower brackets and everything like that came off the old engine. So they're all different now. Plus the bracket here came off the old engine mount, which no longer exists, so I've got to make a new one for that. This is wider here, so I've had to scallop about out here. Scalloping a bit out of here, which luckily with a bit of work the belly pan will fit over the catalytic converter, so it hides the big ugly catalytic converter. We'll just have to put some heat shield inside it. But yeah, the beautiful thing is that this is going to look still very much like a 98 R1 until you sort of look up close and notice that it's got all these late model bits on it. So yeah, probably a couple of days and just getting everything sorted, and then strip the whole thing down again, get everything painted, do all the same modifications to the new fairings, and then just get them touched up and clear coated again, and then bike's finished. So getting there.
After successfully dummy assembling the bike, it was stripped bare again and the necessary parts were sent off for blasting and powder coating. Before the coating goes on, all the parts are hit with compressed air to ensure none of the blasting media is still present. To get a perfect finish, a base primer is put down first and baked. After baking is completed, the colour is put on. Because the donor R1 was blue, the wheels needed to be changed to black. This was done at the same time as the other black parts. The items are then baked again and left to harden overnight. Back at the workshop, it was time to start the final assembly of the bike. The first part was fitting the swing arm, triple clamps and engine. Knowing that everything fits and works, the assembly process is a no-rush situation to ensure everything is fitted correctly and to avoid any damage. Because the bike was built to showcase a stack of great parts distributed by Ficeda, it was at this point where the first of these items were installed. The R&G radiator and oil cooler guards are a simple and quick fit and will protect the coolers from damage and potential failure due to debris. Next was a set of R&G engine case covers. Being a very simple product to fit, these are the same used in the British superbikes and a must for any track day riders, but can also be used every day to protect your pride and joy. Whilst the R&G adjustable rear sets went on, the Yuasa battery was slotted into place. The following day, parts continued to be fitted, and I started to unbox the remainder of the replica fairings, which needed to be fitted up and modified to suit the changes from the 98 spec bike. A set of R&G bar weights were fitted to replace the WE-R1 items, and I continued to trim and tweak the fairings, in some cases using old damaged fairings as dummy units. To finish up the day, iPone brake fluid and radiator liquid were added, and it was time to run the nearly completed bike to ensure everything was tight and there was no leaks.
Okay, so the bike's done. WE98. I guess it's a one of a kind, but you know, we'll have to see. But I'm so happy with the way this has turned out. I can't thank everyone enough for helping with the build, and also the guys for having the faith in me, for throwing a crazy idea their way and giving me the green light on it. So from here, the bike's going to Sydney tomorrow. I'll be taking it over and hand delivering it, and you'll probably see it pop up at some shows and events. And yeah, keep an eye on the internet for the WE98. Thanks for watching. I'm in Sydney and I'm at Sydney Dragway. I think the last time I was here with a camera. I haven't been down the track for as long as I can remember. I think it was 2012. I was here on a new R1 and it was a bit of fun back then, just a press bike. And speaking of press vehicles, thanks to Hyundai, I've got a brand new I-Load for the week. Always liked these, drove one 10 years ago when they first came out, but the new one, new look, new specs, all that sort of stuff. Awesome car. Going to be driving it around all week, so I'll let you know what I think of it after I've driven around. But come with me, because the cool bit that we're going to do now, and watch your foot there, is we'll be bringing this here because I'm finally going to get to actually ride it in anger. So everyone's been asking me, what does it ride like? What does it sound like? So now you're going to find out. So I can't wait. We're going to put all my gear on, go through scrutineering now. So I can't imagine they've got anything to look at because it's all brand new parts anyway. But yeah, I'll get my gear on, we'll go through and get ready to line up and race. Got this nice new Ixon textile jacket now. It's the beginning of spring at the moment and it's 30 degrees today in Sydney. It's probably going to cool down a little bit this evening, but it's still quite warm as I went for a ride today. So I'm going to just rip this liner out because I don't need to stay warm tonight. Got my wristband already because I've signed in. So that's the thing, you come to the drags, you pay your money at the gate, you sign in, get your gear out and go to scrutineering, so they have to check everything. And don't forget to take your paperwork to scrutineering. Don't hate on me because I'm not putting my gloves on. I'm just going from here to the scrutineering shed. I know famous last words, but I'm going walking close. So I'll be a good boy.
Throttle returns.
Everything's brand new.
Jacket's good.
Yep.
Straight off your helmet. Yep, cool. This is the one, that's fine.
Well,
no worries.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Quick reminder as well for everybody up in the grandstand, it is no... thing on a wire, so I feel like I'm changing a kit.
It's 8 o'clock exactly and I've done 2 runs now. Both runs, first one was a bit of a shakedown run just to make sure the bike's right on the track, everything like that. I haven't ridden it since May. and when I rode it, I've only really taken it for a sort of a shakedown run on the road just to make sure nothing fell off it, which was fine. But first run did a 10.8 at 139. Second run I had to mess around with the traction control settings and stuff like that to see if I could make it go faster. Went backwards a little bit, did a 10.9 at 135 I think, but maybe it was just me, right? I'm really not taking enough notice of my actual riding. I'm just sort of happy to be on the bike if anything. But this time out, because I'm feeling comfortable on it, and jumped on the 2018 R1 last week, which I was out on the track in power mode A, slide control, that sort of stuff. Felt pretty good on that, so I put it on mode A, which is power 1, traction 1, slide control 1, which slide control won't even work because the bike's not tipping, but yeah, and see what it does. I mean, I'll be happy if it runs a 10.5. It should do a low 10, but really I'm not here to set any records or prove a point or anything. Just here to ride it so that people can hear the thing and see it in action. So yeah, hope you enjoy. This is my last run I did, and disappointingly, even though I had it in power mode A, the rider let me down. So now for some reason I'm tired, but I think I might need to adjust the shifter. It probably sounds like an excuse, but I literally went to shift from second to third and I hung in second, went to do it again. I was probably on and off the throttle, I don't know. I even took off the line with my visor up because I was tired, so still ran at 11.0, but a mile an hour, you can tell I had something wrong because it was 129. So I'm 10 mile an hour down. Yeah, I mean, it was 8:26 p.m. It's 22 degrees, which is actually quite nice. I'll probably come down under 20 degrees for the next run. So we're getting off the line better, and if I can put that together with what I did earlier, it should run a low 10. On paper it should. I mean, a standard R1 should run a low 10, so, and that's pretty much what that is. So yeah, we'll give it a crack. Done 3 runs now. Technically should be able to run 6 if the night goes well and there's not too many stoppages, so it seems pretty good so far. So it's a nice night out, a few good bikes. It's cool MT-09 here with a bit of Extreme Creations goodies on it. The owner doesn't want me to tell, but it's getting a turbo soon.
We'll just edit that bit out.
Yeah, we'll edit that bit out. Yeah, but right, so this is Jared who owns this MT-09. So what have you done to it so far? So come in so the audio's a bit better.
Yeah, just took it to Ben, he gave it a flash, and I changed the pipe and got the swing arm on it.
And what have you run so far on it?
Best I've got is 10.3, but yeah, just did a sprocket change and yeah, sort of just pulling down the motor a bit.
I mean, you know, 10.3 from a bike which is in a way a cool sort of half hooligan commuter bike is pretty good. I mean, you know, and they're not an expensive bike to buy brand new. The bags are fun, and to be out there running 10.3s on it, and he still rides it every day to work and stuff like that. So, and what are you hoping to get out of it with the turbo? What's your dream time?
Just get in the nines, I mean, low nines.
So that'll be
6 to 8 pound will do that.
and you know, probably borderline under 20 grand.
Easy.
Yeah. So there you go, under 20 grand, 9-second bike. You can ride to work every day, but nice and quiet. Nobody would even suspect it, which is the best thing on a turbo bike, because I've owned one. They pull up the light section and you go, oh yeah, what's that? And then you get to 60 a lot quicker than them. Yeah. So, no, but yeah, keep an eye out for this. And also, if you look on HoonTV, there's plenty of stuff from Extreme Creations that I've done there before. We had the MT-09. I think Ben did a burnout in one of the videos, but heaps of Ben's stuff on there, so check it out, because he is a guru, especially all his CNC stuff. He even gave us a hand on the R1, designing the engine mounts and stuff like that. So Ben's been a really good mate for years and years. Also, I completely forget, all the Honda turbo videos on there, Ben was pretty much the man behind all that. I was just the idiot sort of helping him hold stuff in place. So yeah, he's a really good mate and an amazingly talented guy. So here's to many more cool, stupid things we do together. Alright, so tonight's diesel night at Sydney Dragway. So we've got the big Ram Julie here, but as you can see, our wonderful commentator up here in the Unimog. So to give you an idea how big this thing is, I'm going to say you should probably go out and film this now, because I'm assuming that's probably going to top out about 80 k's an hour. But it probably still do the same speed, towing about 17 cars behind it. So yeah, well, I do dig the Unimog, but the fact that it's painted in like Linex or Raptor or something like that makes it even cooler. So yeah, go out and film it.
Hello boys, Unimog. Ladies and gentlemen, here I am in the mob. Yes, Rusty.
Here we go. Off the line with a 1 second reaction time. We are on for all mother here. With a blistering 30-second pass. Now the race is on to be the first 29-second E-Mod in Australia. Canada.
Yamaha is a cool looking thing. I had a look at it a little bit earlier on with Bob, so when he first brought it out, I liked it. Because, let's be honest, theme nights are huge. We always
still wouldn't get out of gear for me, so I think think I'm just going to have to adjust the gear shifter because my brain's in GP shift mode. But I don't know, still, what time did I do?
7:131.
Yeah, so I couldn't get out of second gear, then I couldn't get out of third gear. There's nothing wrong with the bike, I think it's just the adjustment of the shifter. So, there we go, one more run.
I'll have to get a laugh out of it.
I'm going to keep this really short and sweet because I am knackered. I've been up for a million hours now. Did 5 runs tonight and $60 for the night. Was absolutely jammed, so it was pretty good that we got 5 runs in there. They let us do a run at the last minute, but 5 runs, $60, $12 a run, which is awesome. But yeah, just happy to ride it and show you guys what it rides like. I mean, you know, I didn't do the best job of riding it tonight, but either way I had heaps of fun. So, and that's the main thing I always say to people, you don't have to be the best in the world to ride a motorbike, you just have to ride a motorbike. That's the main thing, it's all about enjoying yourself. So crazy idea becomes reality. Hundreds more crazy ideas in here for motorbikes, that is. So yeah, let's make some more.